Okay, today we're going to be looking at the Nine of Swords, which looks like this, and it's titled Cruelty, and it is a card that nobody likes getting in their reading. So we've got Mars in there as the planet in Gemini, so we might have known that Mars would have something to do with such a destructive card. So let's have a look at the Rider-Waite version, the stuff that nightmares are made of. I guess the saving grace of this card is that it actually makes us more aware of the situation in hand, because it's either going to relate to self-harm and or which can take the form of physical self-harm, and such as, probably can't tell, but remnants of my past, scarring, and you can't tell on the wrist, but anyway, that's back from 2000. Or it can be to do, well, it can be emotional self-harm, thoughts that we have that harm us, a whole range of things. Or it can be cruelty towards someone else in our words and actions, and it can also mean someone lurking in the background that wants to do us harm. So it's at the cutting edge of things, so to speak. So what we'll do, we'll have a look at this, what symbology lies behind this and how it pans out in a reading. The Kabbalah of the Nine of Swords is quite interesting, because on the one hand we're back on the central pillar and might expect some sort of equilibrium with the ninth Sephiroth, because it's on this middle pillar in direct contact with Keter and Tiphereth. But the problem is we're so far down the tree of life that that advantage is now lost, or at least it is in the suit of swords. It's not with the in the other suits, but with regards to the intellect, here we've got lower forms of intellect dominating, which can become destructive. Also, yes, sword is associated with our sort of instinctual and emotional subconscious, and the reactions that are associated with that. So we don't have any sort of higher mind operating in this card. So we have the lower, the carnal sort of mind, and that helps to identify the card as somewhat destructive. With regards to the position in the four worlds, obviously we're down here in Yetzirah, and here we are, so as I say, quite far away from the top of the tree. Okay, if we go to the card itself, so we've got 9 swords of varying lengths, all pointing downwards, and the tips of the swords are sort of dripping in blood there. You've got poison here. If you look closely on each sword, where the poison ends, the blood begins. On the larger swords here, it comes down there and the blood begins there. And the background becomes darker and more menacing as the poison and the blood descend, and to get the more intensity of that sort of swastika type effect. And I forgot to mention, we've got the decan of the card to identify, and we're in the second decan of Gemini. So Gemini, the twins, are here. Second decan, ruled by Mars. That's 10 to 20 degrees. There you've got the Rider-Waite card. The Rider-Waite swords are probably the only cards that I like in the Rider-Waite. For some reason I do think they're pretty cool. And there you have it, some sort of nightmare going on there. But back to our good old Thoth. Looking at the astrology, that again greatly undermines any positivity we might get. We've got Mars being a one-pointed aggressive energy, and Gemini's a very scattered sort of energy, so this makes for quite an uncomfortable fit. So obviously Gemini is to do with some sort of communication, it's an air sign, and so we get this fired up, aggressive, warlike Mars expressing itself through this scattered Gemini sort of energy, and that's where the sort of cruelty comes from. And again, as we indicated, the Sephiroth doesn't help. It's both low down on the tree, but also it's ruled by the moon, and so that again, with the moon being very passive, receptive, because it receives the sun, it receives light from the sun. It doesn't have any light directly from itself, so it's a very passive sort of entity. We get this, it allows for the domination of Mars. Regards to symbology, the swords, we've got this, because the blood starts when the poison finishes, we've got poison thoughts leading to the dripping of the blood there. So this is Mars and its aggression, and this cruelty is either towards ourselves, so it's turned inwards, or it's outwards towards other people. The blood is spirit bleeding from being poisoned, emphasizing pain and suffering. Gemini has the disadvantage of being unable to make a choice and see a way out at this time. So with the Book of Thoth, he says, Mr. Crowley says, we can either deal with this period in our lives by being passive and let it happen, or we can get even. So we've got this passive, reactive type situation. The divinatory meaning, the card can be associated with guilt and feelings of regret, which those energies are then turned in on ourselves. Card is very different from the Six of Swords, which I know we haven't met yet. It's one of the ones that's still outstanding, but the Six of Swords is all about like a logical evaluation of the situation. So with the Six of Swords, we're like taking a step back and analysing it from higher mind, but this is very much a lower mind card. The Six of Swords benefiting from the Sixth Sephiroth. So again, divinatory meaning, a lack of consideration and compassion, a target for cruelty, malice, spite, self-harm, physical self-harm, emotional self-harm, you know, we beat ourselves up, you know, we can be our worst enemy, so we're judging ourselves and harming ourselves in that respect. If we find on reflection that we are, in fact, we feel we're not doing that and we're quite sort of outgoing and confident, then that's the time when we really must ask, what are our thoughts and words doing with respect to other people? Are we being cruel? Are we damaging people with the words that we use? And the last way that it can be interpreted is basically it can be a warning sign that someone may be out to harm us, and that may be someone in the background for now, but nevertheless they are there. Could be you know, like a work situation, work colleague situation, that sort of thing. Okay, that concludes this section. We'll finish off with the divination section to this card. Okay, in the last section we've got the Nine of Swords appearing as the first card in a Celtic cross spread. So first off, we are alerted to the fact that this is probably going to be some sort of intense sort of reading, because this is the main card in the spread of 10, or rather that is, well, they're all important, but this is the focal point. And so we've got some sort of destructive element going on there. If crossed by the 2 of Wands, that really does indicate with the 2 of Wands that we've got Mars in the 2 of Wands, Mars in Aries, and we've got Mars in Gemini in the 9 of Swords. So we've got a lot of aggressive energy there. The 2 of Wands could relate to our behaviour if we are very dominant sort of personality, or it could relate to somebody else in our work environment, or even in a relationship. So we've got this very dominant energy that comes out in destructive ways, which can be hurtful. So that's how you would pair those two together. With the 8 of Wands there, that does indicate that because we've got Mercury in Sagittarius, you've got a quickly moving energy there. Both of those very flighty energies. So that could relate to the fact that we don't think before we speak, because the 8 of Wands does relate to communication. Or someone in our environment again doesn't think before they speak and act, and again that comes out in very negative ways. So we'll go on to the next card, which is Debauch. So we've got the 7 of Cups here. This is definitely relating to emotional issues, and it speaks for someone that is reacting to some event that's taken place in their life, and they react by either drinking, it can be drug related but not necessarily, but it's living a lifestyle like the endless pursuit of happiness just for its own sake. So it's not actually fulfilling. It's we're just trying to get away from whatever is has wounded us by sort of immersing ourselves in something which we think we're just going to lose ourselves in. It's like a reaction going towards trying to balance that negativity out, but in fact it doesn't. It just leads us further into the swamp, as indicated by the picture there. And when we're in this sort of state, then our words can be cruel, because if we're drinking, then that means our emotions are all over the place. Or we could have a member of our family that are in that situation, either drinking or taking drugs, and again that is that does relate to the cruelty in the 9 of Swords very, very acutely. With the 2 of Cups here, again that is relationship orientated more specifically. And the rest of the cards will show you how that actually pans out. Work setting in the 3 of Discs. If we're a boss, then we've got to look at how we're acting, or it could relate to someone who has been unkind to us at work, or who has it in for us. And with the 5 of Discs, if the 5 of Discs is the crossing card again, this is like a worry we've got. And as I've said in the video to that, it's a very stagnant energy. It's not going anywhere, it just sits with us. So that, again, that's quite a trouble combination. 9 of Wands is all about digging in deep to, if you've got somebody who is quite destructive with you, then we really need to as the Nine of Wands indicates, we need to use all our resources to actually overcome this person. So it's obviously been going on quite a while if the Nine of Wands crosses the Nine of Swords. And again, that's a obvious difference between the two nines there, because you've got a very acutely negative Nine of Swords, but in fact the Nine of Wands is not that way. It's actually a very positive card. And if we have something like Nine of Discs there, so that's quite an unusual combination, because you've got a very positive Nine of Discs which is crossing the Nine of Swords. So the Nine of Discs can be to do with unexpected monetary gain, but it can indicate just a general positive material and financial setup for that person. So it could be that, again, this could be interpreted in so many ways, just putting just two cards there, but it could be that their material surroundings are fine, which is the good thing, that they've got nothing to worry about in that sense. It could indicate that somebody has amassed this through being cruel, quite cruel to others, or it could, if the cruelty is directed towards that person, it could be in spite of, or like me in the past, it could be someone who self-harms and was also quite well off financially. So that would it certainly doesn't sum me up now, not financially at least, but that is a way these two can actually aspect each other. So yeah, what would appear to be quite a set of two cards that don't really link in, that's ways in which they do. So I think that's probably it for this video. I don't want it to be too long, so thanks very much for watching. I hope that helps, and I will see you again hopefully. Take care of yourselves